peaceful protest, for freedom of speech. But you can't threaten people. You can't intimidate people. You can't trespass. You can't prevent students from going to their classes. You can't break private property. Those are law enforcement issues.
It is the Martha Zoller Show, and look, it should be pretty simple. You can't do those things. Now, I alluded to this audio from Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton is a guy that I never agree with, okay? He is wrong on every issue. If you look at his Twitter feed, his Facebook feed, he is all about DEI. He's out protesting, people that have taken money away from DEI universities. I don't agree with him on most anything. But here's what he said on MSNBC this morning, and I want to talk about it after.
How do the Democrats, how do all of us on that side say January 6th was wrong if you can have the same pictures going on college campuses?
Good Lord, don't make a parallel with January 6th.
You lose the moral high ground.
That has happened, though.
Okay.
That has happened.
So we know what's going on here.
Mika, I don't even watch this show. Do you watch this show, MSNBC?
I do not know.
No, I don't watch it either. I know who they are. I think it's Mika. And she's married to Joe Scarborough. They cheated on their spouses so that they could now get married. And that's fine. Happens all the time in the workplace. But she is one of these people that think that January 6th is the worst thing that ever happened. And I think January 6th is a terrible thing. It was a riot. It was not an insurrection because, and I have a clear reason why, we certified the election and we swore the president in on time. So it was a blip. And if you go back to historically, we've had alternate electors in a bunch of elections. We've had all kinds of things like this happen. We just didn't have social media to report on it. Okay? And so there have been issues. There was a protest out in front of the White House with everybody on horseback back during the bonus army when the World War I veterans got tired of being messed with before the VA, and they protested and stormed the Capitol and the White House and the mall. Okay? Women got outside for women's suffrage of the Capitol and were arrested and put in jail because they caused so much trouble and went on hunger strikes because they were in jail. That happened, but it was before social media. In the 40s, people got tired of the spending and they bombarded the Congress with arms and legs of dolls. That's pretty creepy, right? Where they said, we're tired of charging an arm and a leg for everything. So that people sent arms and legs of their dolls to Congress and bombarded them with it.
Oh, gosh.
A little creepy, right?
These are some very creative but insane people.
But what I'm saying is you have to be very careful when you say nothing like this has ever happened before. UCLA, when Ronald Reagan was governor, had protests so bad that 2 students were killed. So I'm not saying that makes this right or wrong. It's just you have to be very careful when you classify something as being the worst thing that's ever happened. Now, 9/11, for example, worst thing that's ever happened on our soil. October 7th, worst attack that's ever happened since the Holocaust. Those kinds of qualifiers let you know that it's in our lifetime, in our memory, since Pearl Harbor was 9/11. Okay? So we've got to make sure our perspective is right here. But what he's saying is correct. Is that if you were going to track down every person that went to Dick's Sporting Goods that was at the Capitol on January 6th, then you can track down these people. They're all using their cell phones. Believe me, somehow they had generators and chargers, and they probably have plug-ins all over those areas so that people can plug their phones in. But everybody was using their phones. You could have tracked these people, and Al Sharpton is right. I never thought I'd be saying those words in my lifetime. He's right. If you were going to track the January 6th protesters, you should be tracking these protesters. You should have tracked the people from the George Floyd riots, if that's what you were going to do. If you were going to name every name and you're going to go after every person. You can't just pick and choose what you want. And Rashida Tlaib, I have just had it with you, with your revisionist history. And I'm tired of people that try to say what the civil rights movement was and wasn't and who led it. Okay? Because the civil rights movement was led by working people, working black people and white people that gave up a lot to protest. Okay? They did not just decide to not take their meal plan for a few days. Okay? They had the possibility of losing their jobs. They had a possibility of being arrested. In fact, they happily went to jail if that's what it took. And they also dressed up like it was Sunday. Okay? They dressed up like they cared about themselves. You know, it's a very interesting time, and I benefited from that. I benefited from having a integrated world. Okay? I don't remember, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember that much. I was born in 1959. I don't remember that much about a, quote, segregated world. I do not have a memory of colored water fountains. My sisters did. I do not have a memory of that. I do remember my daughter, taking my daughter to the Martin Luther King Museum, and she was about 6, and she just was looking at that display of the colored and white water fountain and just couldn't walk away from it because it was so, anti to anything she had been taught. And Herman Cain told the funniest story about how he and at the budget store at Rich's, that brings back a memory, doesn't it? The budget store at Rich's, he and his brother would be there with his mother in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, and they would run off from their mom and sneak around and drink the water from the white water fountain because they thought it must have been better water. The fact of the matter is it was the same water. Okay? There are no differences between people. People bleed red. Their DNA's the same. Their cell structure's the same. Their skin is a different color because of the amount of melanin that's in their skin or not. That's all the difference there is. And we need to stop. Race is not what divides us. It is economics and education. And sadly, an education is not a guarantee of making good decisions because these are a bunch of trust fund babies that have never had to solve a problem in their lives. And they think that they can protest, they can take over a building, they can hold a janitor hostage. They held a janitor hostage at Columbia. At UCLA, they held a person, a janitor also, they're picking on the working people, that was injured, and the police had to negotiate to get this guy out of there to get him the medical help that he needed. That's wrong. You can't do all those things and then expect nothing to happen to you. And the pictures of the place, they've cleared out UCLA now, the pictures of the place, that wasn't a protest. That was vandalism and destruction of private property, which is not legal. It's not legal. It was a crime scene. It was not a protest scene. They could have, look, these folks could have had, what's really interesting is that they were winning over the average person in the beginning before they started protesting. And now, because of the ridiculous behavior they have, 3 out of 4 people are now opposing these protests, and the other 25% are afraid to say so. I talked to someone recently, and it was really shocking to me. But she was telling me, in her worldview, in the people she deals with, that she was afraid to voice her opinion to people about Israel because she knew or thought they would oppose her, that they were pro-Palestinian, because she travels, she's in a business that's a little more liberal. And she said, I'm afraid to say anything. This is what they want. They don't want free speech. What they want is for you to be afraid to say what you think. You can join us on the phones at 770-535-2911. You can also text us at that number. Sign it if you remember to. I mean, that would be fantastic if you could. I know you're driving. You're probably voice texting, and it's not, natural to you to put your name at the bottom of the text. But if you could, it would be really helpful to me so I can know where it's coming from. But this is what they want. They don't want free speech. They want you to be afraid. And you know what? Even in the J.K. Rowling thing, where she's been very vocal about her position and those ungrateful people that she made from the Harry Potter movies want to speak against her. Even recently, Daniel Radcliffe continued to speak against her and her positions, just kind of saying it's sad that she thinks that way. The appropriate response, Daniel, is, you know what, I don't agree with J.K. Rowling, but she gave me incredible opportunities in my life that allowed me to have everything my heart could desire. So I may not agree with her, but I can't wait to sit down and talk to her about it. That's what you should say if you're a grown-up, if you're a man, if you're a woman who's a grown-up, who's an adult. You don't just attack somebody. It's funny, I am on Twitter a lot for work, I'll admit that. And I try to not put things out there that I'm going to talk about the next day other than the rundown of the show I put out in the morning, because I want you to hear it here. I don't want you to read it on Twitter and then decide you don't need to listen to the show. So it is interesting when you see that, because they don't know how to act. J.K. Rowling is, she is a self-made woman who believes that women have value. And this whole movement, whether you call it the transgender movement or you call it the gender fluid movement or whatever you call it, is all about taking away from biological women. Okay? That's what it's about. Just look at it. Look at it objectively. That's what it's about. And it's about taking away what we fought for the last 30 or 40 years. And I just think that, I don't want to lower myself to be equal to a man, but I do want to be able to be treated equally in the workplace and in other places. And Daniel Radcliffe, instead of saying it's sad that J.K. Rowling has these positions, what he ought to say is, I am so grateful to J.K. Rowling for giving me the opportunity to play Harry Potter and to have a life beyond all imaginations that I could have because of this great product she did. I don't agree with her on this issue, but I can't wait until we can sit down and talk about it.